Hey there everybody, this is Lee with Creative2xmom, and today I'm going to be sharing with you what we read in the month of August. So welcome back to my channel. My name is Creative2xmom, and this channel is all about homeschooling, parenthood, and thriving in the day-to-day. And once a month, I post a video like this one, sharing with you what I read personally, as well as the read alouds that we did with our kids throughout the month. This month, I am being joined by Lindsay of Bytes of Memory, so I will link her channel down below. She has been joining me the last couple of months, and she has some great suggestions for things that she loves to read, as well as what she reads with her middle schooler. And she and I read very differently, so sometimes we feed off each other, and I find some really great books from her that I never would have discovered before. This month, I have 4 books to share with you that were on my personal reading list, as well as 3 books that we read with the kids. So let's get started. The first book I read this month was called Ours for a Season by Kim Vogel-Sawyer. This is a reread for me, and the month started out a little bit crazy, a little bit hectic, and I just wanted a nice piece of fiction to read throughout the month. Now, even though this is fiction, and I'm saying a nice piece to read while I was busy, the content is not super light. To a degree it is a little bit because it is Amish fiction. However, Sawyer tackles a lot of heavy issues in this book. We have Anthony and Marty, and they are a couple that has been together for, I think, 12 or 15 years. They've been together for a very long time, but through some family illnesses, they are unable to have children. And Marty really, really deeply grieves the fact that she can't be a mother. In fact, if you have read very much Amish fiction, you know that family is the heart of just life. And so the fact that they can't have children is very hard on her and begins to separate her from her husband. Through a chain of events, they start to work on rebuilding a community. He's in construction, and so they go out and they start this rebuilding project. Well, her friend, who is also there, comes down with cancer. She becomes a caregiver for her friend Brooke. And so you're dealing with infertility, you're dealing with cancer, which is a heavy issue, and it also brings in the element of just trafficking, young people being trafficked. She discovers this ring that is happening within this community, and her eyes are awakened to the children out there who do not have families, who do not have advocates for them, and how her and her husband Anthony can be useful in that area. So even though it's a piece of fiction that in some ways is very light, it deals with some really heavy issues as well. Like I said, this is a reread for me. This is one that I've read twice now, and I see myself coming back to again and again. It is very enjoyable. It's not a book that I'm ready to pass on from my shelf just yet. So if you can get your hands on a copy of this one, I would highly recommend it. The second book that I read throughout the month of August was called Unchanging, Finding God in the Midst of Motherhood. Now, I love this author. I have read several of her books before. I've read Hope Unfolding, Love Unending, so I knew that this was probably going to be a book that I was going to enjoy, and I was not at all disappointed. These are short, little 5-minute devotionals to read in the morning, and they help me recenter why I've chosen to be a mom, why I've chosen to be at home with my kids all the time, what a mission field that really is. I'm going to link my full review down below, but I will say if you are busy, living a busy, hectic life, definitely check this book out. Some devotionals that are short like that don't have a lot of depth to them, but this one definitely does. This author has a great way of presenting truth in very simple, everyday form, and yet it's solid truth that will challenge you to grow and change. The third book I read this month was a book called The Middle Matters. And again, this was a review book that I was gifted from the publisher, and I really wanted to like this book. In my mind, I was picturing a book that encouraged you to grow and to change, and why the middle of life, like middle age, why that really matters. What opportunities you might have that you don't always see. I have to say I was heavily disappointed by this book. I'm going to link my full review down below, but in short, it was nothing at all like I expected. There was no encouragement. There was no fresh eyes. to look at middle age. Instead, this was a collection of essays, a lot about the author's life, shared a lot about what she has gone through and the way her eyes have opened. But again, it was just a lot of personal story, not a lot of scripture, not a lot of biblical principle or encouragement, just a lot of kind of fluff and stuff. I find that I kind of call that category light Christianity, and that it's very pretty on the outside, very soft, very gentle, which I think some seasons of life require that, but not a lot of substance. And this was one of those books that just did not have a lot of substance to it, and sadly I really wanted to like this one, but I just can't recommend it. I don't think it's worth your money, I don't think it's worth your time, and honestly I didn't even finish it. I skipped bits and pieces here and there. When I hit about 40% of the way through the book, I thought, really, is this all there is? And so I kind of hit a few things here and there, and just total thumbs down. The fourth and final book that I read this month, I just finished this morning, and it is called Pi by Sarah Weeks. This is written at a 5th grade reading level. My daughter read it. I actually picked it up for her on recommendation from The Simple Rugged Path. I will link her channel down below. She's going to be reading it with her daughters and mentioned it in her 10 read alouds for the new homeschool year. And I thought Lydia would love that because each chapter includes a recipe for a new type of pie. This is the story of a little girl. Her name is Alice. Her Aunt Polly is like the pie queen of the town, and she leaves her recipe to her cat Lardo. Well, Alice is now in charge of Lardo, and somebody steals him because they want the world famous pie crust recipe, and it's all this mystery of trying to find the cat. How can you leave a recipe to a cat? How can you inherit a cat who has a recipe, and how do you steward all of that? It's just a fun little story about a little girl who's trying to unravel this mystery, and of course the pie recipes are included. So if you have a baker in your family around the age of probably 10 to 13, I think this would be a great book for them to check out. As far as what we read with the kids this month, we had 2 audiobooks plus our read aloud for the month of August that we finished. So our read aloud for the month of August was The Wonderful Flight to the Mushroom Planet. And this one has been on my reading list for a little while. Somebody had mentioned it, that their kids really enjoyed it. It was kind of based out of California, and we did a whole unit on astronomy in the spring, so I thought, fun read aloud. It doesn't have to be nonfiction. It can just be a fun, enjoyable story. Well, both of my kids and my husband both said they were not into this book at all. My husband reads with the kids at night, and they said it was like you took a story that a young child would write, don't edit it at all, maybe correct the spelling, the grammar a little bit, but the story was just all over the place. Nothing made sense. They just threw in random, oh, we ate such and such, but it didn't make any reason why they ate that, or why he was traveling to this planet, or he was trying to find his family, but nothing along the way connected at all. It was just random events, random incidents that just did not connect well with each other. So I thought, well, that's a bummer. They spent all this time reading read aloud, because my kids, once they start, they definitely want to finish, and then they said it was just kind of, it was totally not worth their time. So I will take a pass on that one. Apparently it's a whole series and some people love it, but we are done after book 1. The first audiobook that we listened to this month was part of the Heroes of History series, and this was Louis Zamperini. Now that name may sound familiar. Louis Zamperini is the subject of a movie called Unbroken, and I did not realize when we started listening to this book that that was the same person. It was a big movie that came out a few years ago. Angelina Jolie's in it. I haven't seen the movie yet. But this guy's biography is amazing. He was part of the Air Force. He went down in the Pacific, survived this arduous amount of time in the Pacific, tried to be killed by the Japanese. They flew over their raft several times, shot at him and a couple of his buddies that survived the plane crash. They were eventually taken as prisoners of war and treated just absolutely horribly. Well, the turn comes about 3/4 of the way through the book when he's married and he's suffering from PTSD essentially, and his wife encourages him to go to a Billy Graham crusade, and there he meets Jesus, and it's about everything that he's gone through. You see this whole epic adventure of stuff that, you know, number one, he should have never survived the plane crash. Number two, he never should have survived months out in the Pacific. Number three, all the POW stuff that he went through, the post-traumatic stress disorder, everything that he survived, and how he takes all of that and through Christ is able to turn it around to a ministry across the United States, and eventually is called to go back to Japan and minister to the people there. Amazing, amazing story. There were parts of it that, especially if you have a sensitive child, I cringed through some of the POW stuff. It was a little rough, and at one point I said, okay, I've had enough. We kind of fast forwarded through one section. But my kids were so enamored with everything that he lived through, and he becomes this larger than life hero. And it's true. It's hard to believe that somebody actually went through all of this, when I could have only maybe survived a fraction of what he did. So if you're looking for heroes and people for your kids to look up to, the Heroes of History series I would definitely recommend, and this one in particular was a really amazing story, especially for me. The last book that we listened to with the kids was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I realized that when my older two were young, we did listen to this book, but my little guy has never listened to it. He has read the book, but I think there is something special about hearing someone read it, especially because he's only 7 and he's listened to this book, and I don't quite know how much he understands. So being able to listen to it on audiobook and have somebody who understands the story and can put the emphasis and the emotion and all the emotion into the words and the reading, I thought would be really good for him. We love this one. It's classic, and in fact they've already asked for me to get the second one on audiobook, so be watching for The Magician's Nephew, hopefully in September. So that's all the books that I read, as well as the books that we read with the kids throughout the month of August. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you're reading or what you're reading as a read aloud in your home. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Also, check out the description box below. There will be tons of links for lots of resources for you guys. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.